Hello everyone. For this week's tutorial video, I'd like to go over comprehensively all of the time-based audio effects, starting at the most basic and then building up to the most sophisticated. The most basic of the time-based effects is called repetition. It means the same thing as repetition usually means in everyday terms. So in this case, it means the waveform you have recorded will be repeated exactly the same as it was originally recorded by the number of times you specify. Like this. Click Effect, Repeat, and then the dialog box will have you enter in the number of repeats you want.
Like this, like this, like this, like this, like this.
The next effect that is slightly more sophisticated is echo, which will repeat your sound, but with a gradual loss of volume each time you repeat, just like an echo in real life. Once you click Effect and then Echo, you'll be prompted with the delay time between each instance of the echo, and a decay factor, which is how strongly the volume decreases each echo.
Like this, like this, like this.
Note that the delay is in seconds, whereas the repetition effect discussed earlier does not repeat it by a set number of seconds, but instead repeats it by the length of the original recording. The next effect is delay, which can be thought of as a more advanced and customizable version of echo. Like tremolo, you will find delay on the bottom menu rather than the top menu, so you'll have to scroll down. But once you do, you will see that you'll be prompted with a delay type, a delay level per echo, which is the increase or decrease in decibels, a delay time between each echo in seconds, like the regular echo effect, and also options to change pitch each echo, which the regular echo option does not have. The default option is 0 pitch change per echo, but you can slide the slider to the left to make the echoes go deeper each echo, or slide it to the right to make the pitch go higher per echo. The last options are the total number of echoes, and whether you want the effect to change the duration of the sound you apply it to, or truncate it to fit the duration of the original recording. Here is an example of regular delay with no pitch change.
Like this.
Note that it sounds just like the regular echo. Here's an example with a positive decibel amount per echo. Note that the maximum is only 1 decibel.
Like this.
Here's an example of the bouncing ball delay type.
Like this.
Note that as the amount of echoes increases, the time between each echo decreases. And here's an example of reverse bouncing ball, where the time between echoes increases the more echoes there are.
Like this.
Here's an example of regular delay, but with a pitch change.
Like this.
The next effect I would like to go over is pulse stretch, which is very, very similar to change in tempo, but allows you to stretch the sound out by very large amounts without making the audio choppy, like a tempo change would if you stretch it out for too long. The pulse stretch options are stretch factor, which multiplies the length of the original recording by the number you enter, and time resolution, which determines how stretched out the sound appears. So a low time resolution means that it will go faster, even with the same stretch factor, versus a higher time resolution. Note that the maximum time resolution allowed is 1 second. The pulse stretch effect is often used to make sounds in horror movies or horror-based video games. The next effect I like to discuss is sliding stretch. And you can change the initial and final tempos as well as the initial and final pitches. Increasing both the initial tempo and the final tempo increases the tempo of the recording. And setting the initial or final to 0 while increasing only the other one still increases the tempo, but not as strongly as increasing both greater than 0. The initial and final pitch shifters allow you to enter in one of two boxes in semitones from -12 to 12 if you know how semitones work already. Or if you don't, in the box beneath it is a percentage change from -50 to 100, with negative percentages making the pitch lower and positive percentages making the pitch higher, just like how tempo change works. As you can tell, you would use sliding stretch if you want a convenient way to change the pitch and tempo at the same time, without the limitations of the change speed option that forces a decrease in pitch to match a decrease in tempo, and vice versa. The final time-based effect, reverb, is the most complicated and allows you to simulate voice echoes off of walls in a large room, like an auditorium. The options are room size and percentage. Note that only 0 and positive values are accepted, because logically it wouldn't make sense to have a negative room size. Pre-delay, which is in milliseconds rather than regular seconds, which determines the delay before the reverb occurs. Example with 0 room size.
Like this.
Example with 100% room size.
Like this.
Example with no pre-delay.
Like this.
Example with maximum pre-delay.
Like this.
Reverberance, which determines how long each reverb itself is.
Like this. Like this. Like this.
Damping, which determines how quickly the reverb dies out.
Like this. Like this. Like this. Like this.
Tone low, which determines how pronounced the low-end frequencies of the reverberation are. Note that is 100% by default. So an example with 0% tone low.
Like this.
Tone high, which determines how pronounced the high-end parts of the reverb are. It is also 100% by default, but this is what happens if I change it to 0%.
Like this.
Width gain, which determines the change in decibels each reverberation. Note that it's negative by default. But if you change it to positive, it will sound like this.
Like this.
Dry gain, which amplifies the original recorded sound minus the reverbs. It is negative by default, but if you change it to positive, this is what happens.
Like this.
Stereo width, which only works for stereo tracks, i.e. it has to be more than one track, and determines by percentage amount how much it will fluctuate between the left and right channels.
Like this.
The last option is wet only, which means that we'll get rid of the original recording and play only the reverberations.
Like this.
Now that I've gone over all the time-based effects, I can now discuss timbre-based effects, such as distortion, phasers, or wah-wah effects. Although distortion and wah-wah effects are most commonly used for electric guitar players, they can be applied to any sound to give it a unique tone, individual from the original recording.